Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're making a casual mock neck top. With the holiday season well behind us, I wanted to make something that was made for any urbanite on the go. A slightly loose-fitted top with lots of texture, but not much else. Simple, clean, modern crochet goodness topped with a mock neck. Speaking of, if you're a fan of modern crochet makes, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 230 grams of yarn. That's 510 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us the TV series that you've completed from start to finish. Now, there is quite a few for me, but the first 2 that come to mind are Game of Thrones and for animated Black Clover. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and Trinity stitch. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and I'll explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making an odd number chain that starts 1 inch underneath our underarm down to our waist. Now I need roughly 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 35. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our row 1. So this piece is mainly going to be done with our Trinity stitch, so getting that started, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Now to do our first Trinity stitch, we're going to start with a single crochet into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook. So bring our hook down into that second chain, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our first single crochet. Then to do the actual Trinity stitch portion, we're going to start by inserting our hook into the same chain that our single crochet is worked into. So into that same chain, insert, and pull through for 2 loops on our hook. Now we ultimately want 4 loops on our hook, so into that following chain, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through, and then into that following chain, insert, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. When we have those 4 loops, we're all going to yarn over, pull through all 4, and to finish off this first Trinity stitch, we're all going to chain 1. And that is always going to be how we're going to do our first Trinity stitch, unless stated otherwise. So now the second Trinity stitch and onward until we have to do the last one is all going to be the same. So let's get that one started together. So getting started on the second one, we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into. So it will be occupied. Into that chain, we're going to insert, pull through. Again, we're going to want to pull up 4 loops on our hook. So into that following chain, insert, pull through for 3, and into that following chain, insert, pull through for 4. Then yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and to finish off the Trinity stitch, loosely chain 1. We want to make sure that we're using a medium to loose grip so that the following row isn't too tight. Let's do the next one. The next one is going to be a repeat of this second Trinity stitch that we just did together. So start by inserting our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into. So insert, pull through, into that next stitch, pull through, and into that next stitch, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. When we have those 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4, Then to finish off this Trinity stitch, chain 1, and that's it. We're all going to continue to repeat our Trinity stitch, making our way all the way down, and now we'll meet back when we have 2 chains left. So we are back. We've made our way all the way down with our row 1, leaving the last 2 chains. Now what we're going to do from here is our last Trinity stitch, which is going to be done just a little bit differently. So when it comes to doing our last Trinity stitch, what we're going to do is start it off the same as the other ones. So start by inserting your hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through into that following chain, which is our second to last, pull through, and then into that last, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. Then we're all going to yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. Then when we're doing our last Trinity stitch, instead of doing a chain 1, we're going to close off the row with a single crochet into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, just to make sure that we don't miss out on that stitch. But this is going to be a 3-row repeat, and the first 2 rows are going to be increases. So for this row, right after we do our single crochet, we are also going to be doing a half double and double crochet. So yarn over into the same last stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, and then once more into that same last stitch, pull through with a double crochet, so pull through 2 and pull through 2. And that is the end of our row 1. So far we should have 2 more stitches than chains that we made. Now the following row is going to be another Trinity stitch row, but it's going to start with an increase as well. So what we're going to do is chain 3 and flip our work. So what we're going to do from here is start off our Trinity stitch with 1 double and 1 half double crochet into that first stitch. So yarn over into that first stitch with 1 double crochet, into that same first stitch with a half double crochet, and then right after those first 2 stitches are completed, we're going to get started on our first Trinity stitch the same way that we got started in our previous row. So it's going to start with a single crochet, and that single crochet is going to be done into that same stitch that the first 2 stitches are worked into. So into that same first stitch, start with a single crochet. Now our Trinity stitch from here is going to be per usual. So start by inserting your hook into the same stitch that our single crochet and obviously our other 2 stitches are worked into. Pull through. We still need to pull up a total of 4 loops on our hook, so into that following stitch, pull through, and into that following stitch, pull through for 4 loops. Then yarn over. And once we've pulled through all 4, we're all going to chain 1 to complete our first Trinity stitch. And now our first Trinity stitch for our row 2 is complete. So let's do the next Trinity stitch. So we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, into that next stitch, pull through, and into that next stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through all 4, and chain 1 from here. We're going to continue to do that Trinity stitch, making our way all the way down until we all have 2 stitches left. Alright, so we are back. We have made our way all the way down with our row 2, and now we're going to do our last Trinity stitch. Now, at the end of every even number row, our last Trinity stitch is going to be a regular Trinity stitch, so no increases and no decreases. So how that's going to work is we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, so per usual, into that next stitch, which is our second to last, and then into that next stitch, which is our last, pull through 4, and then for the last one, since we're at the end of our even number row, instead of doing a chain 1 to complete it, we're going to single crochet into that last stitch. And now from here, our row 2 is complete. Now in our 3-row repeat, our first 2 rows have increases, and then our last row in our 3-row repeat doesn't have any increases. So what we're going to do from here is chain 1 and flip our work. Now to get started on our row 3, we're going to start with a single crochet. Then into the same stitch that our single crochet is worked into, we're going to insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and chain 1. That is our first Trinity stitch in our non-increase row. Now let's do the second one. into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1 to secure, and continue this until we have 2 stitches left. We are now at the end of our row 3. Now we're going to do our last Trinity stitch. Now since this is the last row in our 3-row repeat, we're going to be doing any increases, so just to do the last one, insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, into that second to last, pull through, last, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, then to close it off, single crochet into that same last stitch. Now our row 3 is complete. So from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 3 previous rows until we have an underarm portion that can reach from mid-underarm all the way to the base of our neck. Now just a few quick tips that I have to give you before I go. Now it is going to be a repeat of our 3 previous rows, but since this is an odd number of row repeats, sometimes our first Trinity stitch is going to end with an increase, kind of like how this one did, or it's going to start with an increase like how the following one is going to. So you just need to adjust, making sure that we're increasing along the top end, or to make it a little bit easier, where the tail end is for the first 2 Trinity stitch rows, and then the third row is always not going to have any increases into it. Also, when we're putting this up to ourselves, we want to make sure that we're keeping this tail end still at 1 inch underneath our underarm, because we don't want the armhole that we're going to work into later to be too big. So remembering 1 inch underneath our underarm over to the base of our neck. And I will meet you guys back right after we finish up our second increase row. And that can end along the top or the bottom. That's completely up to you. We are back. I have just finished up my underarm portion. I have a total of 14 rows. My width is roughly 5 inches or 13 centimeters. Now from here, we're all going to get started with our neckline portion. So this part's going to be pretty simple. It's just going to be rows of our Trinity stitch with absolutely no increases and no decreases. So since we already know how to do that, all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, do our Trinity stitch all the way down, making sure that we end it with the one that just ends with 1 single crochet. And we're just going to repeat that row until we have a portion that can reach from the side of the base of our neck, across our chest, over to the side of the base of our neck. And then once we have this neckline portion all finished up, I will meet you back right after an even number row or along the blunt end, so we can finish up with our decreased side together. We are back. My neckline portion is complete. Now I have a total of 28 rows. My width is roughly 9 inches or 23 centimeters. Now we're going to finish up with the decreased side of our underarm. Now right before we move on though, we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into our first neckline row and also into our last neckline row, just so we know where that starts and ends. But what we're going to do from here, since we all should have ended along the bottom, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work, and then work our way all the way up with our Trinity stitch, leaving the last 4 stitches, and then I'll meet you back. So we're back. We've made our way all the way up with our Trinity stitch, leaving the last 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. Now we're going to do our decrease. So it's going to start off the same way that all of our other Trinity stitches have started off. So we're all going to insert our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitches worked into, pull through, into that following stitch, which is the 4th to last, pull through, and then into the stitch right after that, which is the 3rd to last, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, so far everything is per usual, but now instead of doing a chain 1, we're going to close it off with a decrease of 2 half doubles. So we're all going to yarn over, into that 2nd to last, pull through, into that last, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and that is the decrease for this row. Now we should have 2 less stitches than our previous row. Now, once we have that completed, let's get started on the following row, which is going to start with a decrease as well, so chain 2 and flip. Now, whenever we're starting our row with a decrease, what we're going to do is start with a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, into that first stitch, pull through, 2nd stitch, pull through, 3rd stitch, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, this is our decrease. Yarn over, pull through all 5, and then we're going to do our first Trinity stitch. Now we're going to do our first Trinity stitch pretty much the same way that we do our regular first Trinity stitch. So we're going to use this last stitch that our decrease is worked into as our single crochet. So we're going to start by inserting our hook into the last stitch that our previous decrease was worked into. Pull through, next stitch, pull through, stitch right after that, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4, and complete this Trinity stitch with a chain 1. Now that is going to be our first Trinity stitch. Now the rest of our Trinity stitches are going to be the same, so just complete that, making our way all the way down. And since this is an even number row, we're going to close it off with a Trinity stitch that ends with just 1 single crochet, keeping the bottom edge nice and blunt. Then, since this is still a 3-row repeat because we are mirroring the other underarm portion, we're going to do a Trinity stitch with no increases and no decreases, and then I'll meet you back. So the first 3 rows for our decreased side is complete. Now from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 3 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as our first underarm portion. But since this is an odd number of row repeats, sometimes our first decrease row is going to end with a decrease, or it's going to start with a decrease like how our following row is. But either way, we just want to make sure that we're always decreasing along the top of our piece while keeping the 3-row repeat in mind. Once we have the same amount of rows as our first underarm portion, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. We are back. We have just finished up the entirety of our front panel. My total width is roughly 13.5 inches or 34 centimeters. Once we have one panel completed, we're going to make one more that is exactly the same. Once we have both of them completed, then I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up together. Now once we have both our front and back panel completed, we're then going to seam the sides. So we're going to place our front panel on top of our back panel, then we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back. Then we are going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And all we're going to do is do a single crochet seam. That's just going to be a single crochet row working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So getting the first one started, insert your hook into that next available stitch into the front panel, then find that next available stitch into the back panel, insert, and then we're going to single crochet around everything. But if you want to weave in your ends as you go, grab your tail ends and place them over your hook and then just single crochet around everything. That is the first one. Let's do the next one together. Finding that next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back panel, insert, and then single crochet around everything. And that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way up. We don't have any more stitches left to work into. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. So we are back. Everything is all seamed up, and the next thing we're going to do is start to work on our mock neck. So first things first, we're all going to start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, meaning all of the seams that we just did for the sides are now going to be along the inside. Then what we're going to do is insert our hook into our side row that our stitch marker's in, so it should be the corners within the front and the back panel. Pick one, doesn't matter. And then we're going to start by making a chain that reaches up and over our shoulder, and then we're going to connect it into the back panel. So this portion that we're about to get started on is going to do 2 things. Once we're finished up with this row, it will go around the entirety of our neck. It does need to fit around our head, so when this row is completed, we are going to want to try this on to make sure that it can fit around our head and fit along our neck nicely, but also make sure that our armholes aren't too tight or too loose because we are going to be forming both the neckline and the armhole at the same time. Now I have already went ahead and measured mine out. I needed to make a chain of 12, that's roughly 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, so I went ahead and did that. Once we have our chain, we're then going to single crochet it into the top corner stitch of the back panel. So let's flip our work over. Once when our work is flipped, what we're going to do to connect it is single crochet it into the side row that our stitch marker's in within the back panel. That single crochet is going to count as our connection and as our first single crochet because we're going to single crochet across the top as well. So into that stitch marker side row, I'm just going to insert my hook in through there with 1 single crochet. And then from here, continue with our single crochets. So just put 1 single crochet into every side row. So just do the next one. This is my following side row. I'm going to find that top loop, single crochet once, This is my following side row. Find that top loop, single crochet once again. We're going to continue this until we're worked into our following stitch marker side row. Then once we are, we're going to make the same chain that we made on this side, single crochet it into the top corner stitch of the front panel. Then just like how we did for the back, continue with one single crochet into every side row and then slip stitch into that chain space. Once when this is complete, like I said, try our piece on just to make sure that everything's fitting nicely, and then I'll meet you back. Once when this row is completed, we're then going to do a single crochet row just to kind of beef it up. So what we're going to do right after we slip stitch into that chain space is chain one, and working in the same direction that we did for our previous row, just put one single crochet into every chain and one single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around. Slip stitch into that chain space, and then I will meet you guys back to get started on the height of our mock neck. But just one really quick tip. This single crochet row that we are about to do will be as wide as this portion can stretch. So once when that following single crochet row is completed, try our piece on just one more time just to make sure that everything is fitting nicely. If it's a little too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. We are back. Our single crochet row is completed and everything fits nicely, so now we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our mock neck to be. Now you can make this as long or as short as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be relatively short. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 8. That's roughly 2 inches or 4 centimeters. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to do a slip stitch row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch. That's our turning chain. Then into the chain that we blocked off, the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch. So all we're going to do is insert our hook. When we have these 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and gently pull through both loops on our hook. So there's the first and there's the second. Let's do another one. Into that next chain, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through everything, and that's it. Continue with one slip stitch into every chain, but be sure that we're not tugging too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row is going to be way too tight to work into. And once we put one slip stitch into every chain, we're now going to connect it into the base. So how we're going to do that is start by slip stitching into that next available stitch, which is this for me. Insert with a slip stitch, just like that. And that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. That still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. Now from here we're going to be doing back loop slip stitches. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, not any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop. Then again, yarn over and pull through everything. Again, into that next stitch's back loop, yarn over, gently pull through everything, and that's it. We're going to continue on with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. When we reach the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the base just once more. We are back. Our first 1, 2, 3 rows are complete. Now we're going to connect it into the base. And it's going to be done exactly the same way as the previous row. So, finding that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. Doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. Flip our work, and then repeat. So one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around. Well, we don't have any more stitches left to work into. I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up together. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now all we're going to do is just seam it up together. So first things first, we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, but first making sure that our work is flipped right side out still. And then what we're going to do is yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. Then from here, an outside loop slip stitch seam. So just to do the first few, find that first stitch into the front panel and insert only in through that front loop. Find the next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop, then yarn over and gently pull through all 3 loops. Let's do that again. Next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop. Yarn over and pull through everything, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So now that our mock neck is all seamed up, we're now going to get started on the bottom band. So getting that started, we're all going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then what we're going to do is just do a single crochet row. So start by inserting your hook into any one of the side rows along the bottom of our piece. And just like how we did for the top of the front and back panel, just put one single crochet into every side row and then slip stitch into that chain space. Now, as a really quick tip, this single crochet row, just like for the neckline, is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So once we made our way all the way around to the single crochet row, make sure that everything fits nicely. Again, if it's a little bit too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip, and then I'll meet you back. We are back. Our single crochet row along the bottom is complete, and now we're going to get started on the length of our bottom band. So this is actually going to be done exactly the same way as the mock neck, so I'm just going to be talking you guys through it. Right after we slip stitched into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I went ahead and made a chain 12. Then from here, just do back loop slip stitch rows, making our way all the way around with no increases and no decreases, exactly the same way as the mock neck. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I will meet you back. So we are back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch bottom band. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it, and this seam is going to be done exactly the same way as the mock neck, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. We're all going to start by making sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam, so we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So we are back, and the last thing we're going to have to do right after we have seamed up our bottom band is just single crochet along our armhole just to clean everything up. As you guys can see, I've already done this side, so I'm just going to talk you guys through how to do this side. So we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have into the collar that the front panel or back panel, depending on what panel you're looking at, is worked into. So this is mine. It will be an occupied stitch. Then working our way down our underarm portion, all we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side row, making our way all the way up. So let's do that together. Insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, then start by finding our first side row, and this is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with a single crochet. Again, this is my next top loop, insert with another single crochet. This is my following side row. We're going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2. And then our next side row, which this is mine right here, another 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2. And that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down and all the way back up. When we don't have any more side rows left to work into, slip stitch into that next stitch that our front panel is worked out of into the collar, do a chain of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. And now that we have just finished up our single crochets along the armholes, we are all done. The last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.